Imagine you are finally rebuilding your life.
Right.
You're making real progress on a project or a relationship or, maybe setting a new boundary.
Yeah.
And then out of nowhere, a coordinated public smear campaign is launched against you.
It's the worst.
But this isn't today on social media. This is 2,500 years ago.
Which honestly just proves human nature hasn't changed all that much.
No, not at all.
I mean, it is a recurring pattern in history that the very moment you commit to building something meaningful, opposition seems to awaken, specifically to tear it down.
Exactly. And that specific tension between building something good and fighting off the chaos is exactly what we are exploring today on the Come Follow Him Project Deep Dive.
I am so excited for this one.
Me too. So we are analyzing this brilliant set of sources covering the Old Testament books of Ezra and Nehemiah. But we are looking at this history through a highly unique lens today.
Right, because of the project.
Yes, through a custom song written specifically for this week's Come Follow Me lesson material. It's titled A Great Work with the subtitle, I Will Not Come Down.
And what makes this material so compelling is how the songwriter uses the architecture of music to bridge ancient history with our, very modern psychological and spiritual struggles.
Yeah.
It's not just a history lesson. It is a literal blueprint for resilience when you are under attack.
It totally is. And before we get into the lyrics, the sheer variety of how this song has been interpreted by the project is just amazing.
Oh, it really is.
Our source material notes that it exists in 5 completely different musical arrangements.
5 of them.
Yeah, 5. So there is a sacred cathedral choir version.
Which sounds incredibly majestic.
So majestic. But then there's a rustic bluegrass waltz.
Which gives it this totally different, gritty, working class feel. Right.
And then there's a melancholic 1980s prog rock cut.
Oh, wow. I bet that really highlights the angst of the smear campaign we were just talking about.
It definitely does. And rounding it out, there's an epic symphony orchestra track and a modern worship anthem.
The emotional flavor shifts so dramatically depending on the genre, but the core message remains rock solid across all of them.
Which is fitting, considering the entire narrative we're about to explore is quite literally about building a foundation out of rock.
I see what you did there.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, let's unpack this. We all know the historical backdrop here. We've got 70 years of Babylonian exile.
Right. We are very familiar with the imagery from Psalm 137.
Yeah, the captives weeping by the rivers of Babylon, hanging up their harps. You have an entire generation growing up far away from Jerusalem.
But what this song captures so well is the extreme tension of the return.
Yes. So our mission today is to walk through these lyrics and uncover how the writer embedded exactly 14 King James Version scripture phrases into the poetry.
14 exact KJV phrases.
Yeah, 14. And we're going to see why this ancient story of masonry is actually a masterclass in protecting our own peace today.
Embedding the exact scriptural phrasing into a melody is just a highly effective way to internalize the text.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it bypasses the analytical filters of the brain and allows the weight of the history to land directly in the heart.
I love that. Well, let's look at how that starts. The opening verse really sets the emotional scene. I'll read it. The lyrics read, 70 years by the rivers we wept, far from the ruins the covenant kept.
Setting up that Babylonian exile context perfectly.
Right. And then it says, Jeremiah's word in the silence rang true. God stirred a king to clear a way through. Cyrus proclaimed, let the exiled go free. Go build him a house, and there bend the knee.
That is powerful.
It is. But parsing through this, that phrase, God stirred a king, immediately stands out to me.
Yeah, it's verbatim from the text.
Right. We know from Ezra chapter 1, verse 1, that the Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus. But thinking about the geopolitics of this for a second.
Okay, let's look at the geopolitics.
God is using a Persian emperor. Cyrus is a conquering outsider.
He is completely detached from the Jewish faith.
Exactly. It just seems so counterintuitive. Why wouldn't God use an internal prophet to fund this return? It's like a rival corporate CEO randomly stepping in to fund your grassroots charity project.
That is a great analogy.
Right.
But what's fascinating here is how explicit the biblical text is about this unexpected catalyst.
Right.
God actively moved the heart of a foreign emperor to let the exiles go and to rebuild the house of the Lord. I mean, it demonstrates something profound about how providence operates.
It shows that God isn't limited by our cultural or, religious borders.
Not at all.
If he needs a path cleared for you, he can use the most unconventional means possible, even stowing the heart of a foreign king to open that door.
Precisely. And so Cyrus gives the green light, and the people actually travel back to the ruins of Jerusalem.
Which had to be overwhelming.
Oh, incredibly. Which brings us to the actual construction, beginning with the temple foundation, overseen by their leader, Zerubbabel.
And the lyrics in the pre-chorus capture that momentum. It says, "So we set our hands to the mortar and stone. We came back to build what was once overthrown."
You can really feel the energy there.
Yeah, but then we hit verse 2, which describes the dedication of that new foundation.
This is where the emotional tone really shifts.
It really does. It says, "The foundation was laid, and the trumpets rang clear. The young shouted praise while the elders shed tears."
Wow.
Let me stop right there.
Yeah.
When I first read that line about the elders shedding tears, it genuinely stopped me in my tracks.
It's a very striking image.
Right, because they aren't crying happy tears here, are they?
No, they're not.
Because I was so puzzled at first. Like, you just laid the foundation. Why are you crying?
Well, you've hit on one of the most psychologically complex moments in the entire Old Testament.
Really?
Yeah. So Ezra chapter 3, verses 11 through 13, paints this devastatingly beautiful picture. The younger generation, so those born in captivity, are shouting for joy because they finally have a temple foundation.
Because they've never seen one before.
Exactly. To them, this is the greatest triumph they've ever known.
Yeah.
But the elders carry the heavy burden of memory.
Oh, wow.
They are looking at this new, modest foundation, and they are remembering the absolute, unfathomable majesty of Solomon's temple that the Babylonians destroyed decades earlier.
But that makes so much sense. So it's the staggering grief of the past colliding directly with the soaring joy of the future.
Yes. And the scripture actually notes that the noise was so loud and so mixed that you could not discern the shout of joy from the noise of the weeping.
That is just, it gives me chills.
Right. It tells us that healing and rebuilding our lives is rarely just a happy construction project. It is messy.
Yeah.
The joy of moving forward doesn't erase the grief of what we had to leave behind. And the biblical narrative validates both of those human experiences simultaneously.
That brings so much texture to the story. I love that.
It's very real.
So once the temple foundation is secure, the historical focus eventually shifts to building the protective wall around the city, led by Nehemiah.
Right, which happens quite a bit later.
And this is exactly where the massive opposition arrives.
Of course it does.
So the chorus hits with this bold declaration. It says, "I am doing a great work, I will not come down, laying the stones till salvation surrounds. Let the letters fly, let the enemies scheme. The good hand of God is mighty to redeem."
I love that energy.
Me too. And it finishes with, "I'm doing a great work, so why should it cease? I am building his house, I am building his peace."
The line, "Let the letters fly, let the enemy scheme," perfectly encapsulates the historical tactics used by Nehemiah's main opponents.
Sanballat and Tobiah, right?
Exactly. Sanballat and Tobiah. And this wasn't, a physical army marching on the city. This was a highly sophisticated psychological operation.
Okay, let's dig into those letters because that detail is fascinating to me. This was a documented paper campaign.
Very documented.
So in Nehemiah chapter 6, Sanballat sends an open letter to Nehemiah. Now, in the ancient Near East, why is the fact that it was open such a devastating weapon? Like, why does that specific word matter?
It matters a lot because in ancient honor and shame cultures, privacy and public perception were everything.
Right.
Letters were typically rolled up and sealed with a clay signet.
Right, to keep them private.
Exactly. The only person who broke the seal was the intended recipient. So an open letter meant the document was handed off unsealed to a courier.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It was intentionally designed so that every merchant, every soldier, and every civilian along the supply route would read it before it ever reached Nehemiah.
Wow. It's basically the ancient equivalent of manufacturing virality.
That is exactly what it is.
He didn't just quietly threaten Nehemiah. He weaponized public outrage to erode Nehemiah's local support, like an ancient Twitter mob.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
The letter contained a completely fabricated rumor that Nehemiah was only building the wall so he could rebel against Persia and declare himself king.
Which is totally false.
Completely false. It was political propaganda meant to intimidate the workers and force Nehemiah to stop construction just to defend his reputation.
And when the smear campaign didn't work, the lyrics mention how the enemies scheme.
Oh, and the schemes were just as insidious. They repeatedly tried to lower Nehemiah off the safety of the wall for a diplomatic meeting in a location called the Plain of Ono.
Wait, the Plain of Ono, that just sounds like a bad place to go.
Literally. Oh, no. And it was a trap. They wanted to draw him into neutral, vulnerable territory to harm him or just completely discredit his leadership.
So you have these two very specific weapons, the words representing the smear campaigns and the physical schemes.
Right.
But the lyrics answer those threats with this brilliant counterphrase. It says, "The good hand of God is mighty to redeem."
Yes.
That word redeem feels like a very deliberate choice by the songwriter.
It is a very deliberate echo of broader Old Testament promises. And it's time for our word nerd moment of the deep dive.
Let's do it.
So the phrase mighty to redeem or mighty to save appears in passages like Isaiah chapter 63, verse 1.
Okay.
In its original Hebrew context, the concept of a redeemer, the word is goel, was a family protector.
A family protector?
Yeah, someone who would step in to buy back a relative from slavery or, defend them against insurmountable debt.
Oh, wow.
So by embedding this into the chorus, the lyrics contrast the petty, localized schemes of Sanballat with the absolute cosmic saving power of God's hand.
It completely reframes the power dynamic. That is incredible. But here's where it gets really interesting, though.
Okay, where?
Because relying on God's redeeming power didn't mean the builders just sat back and waited for a miracle.
Not at all.
They were incredibly proactive. In Nehemiah chapter 4, verse 6, the King James translation notes that the people had a mind to work.
A mind to work.
Yes. And later, in verses 17 and 18, it gets extremely practical. They literally built the wall holding a trowel in one hand while having a sword girded by their side.
It is the ultimate synthesis of faith and fierce practical action.
Right. And the pre-chorus captures the sheer exhaustion of that reality perfectly. It says, "So we made our prayer and we set up the guard with a trowel in hand and a sword for the yard. We stood on the wall and we held to the light, ready to build and ready to fight."
Just think about the biomechanics and the physical toll of that.
Oh, it must have been brutal.
You are trying to lay heavy stone and mortar, which is absolutely a two-handed job.
Right.
But you're doing it with only one free hand because you refuse to put down your weapon.
The physical exhaustion perfectly mirrors the mental exhaustion of having to defend yourself while trying to be productive.
It perfectly illustrates what true perseverance requires.
Yeah.
You pray as if everything depends entirely on God's protection, but you set a guard and grab your trowel as if everything depends on your own physical labor.
Wow, yes.
You are actively building the kingdom, but you are also actively defending your spiritual borders.
I love that so much. And this idea of holding your ground and refusing to compromise doesn't just stay in ancient Jerusalem, though.
No, it doesn't.
Because as we reach the bridge of the song, the material draws a fascinating parallel, centuries later, to another moment someone was told to step down.
This is the turning point of the whole piece.
It really is. I want to read this bridge section aloud because the theological pivot here changes how we view the entire story.
Go for it.
Okay, it says, "Then Ezra unrolled the book of the law, he read it out plain, and they all stood in awe.
Right.
This day is holy, let mourning depart, for the joy of the Lord is the strength of your heart."
Such a famous line.
And then it shifts. Then centuries later, on Calvary's Hill, they taunted, "Come down!" But he stayed on it still.
Oh, man.
He wouldn't step down till the ransom was paid, till the foundation stone of salvation was laid, the greatest work finished by God's Son.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is a masterful use of historical foreshadowing.
It just completely blew my mind.
Let's break it down. First, it anchors us in Nehemiah chapter 8, verses 9 and 10, where Ezra the scribe reads the law to the people, reminding them that the joy of the Lord is your strength.
Right. And the people are weeping again, but this time they're commanded to let mourning depart.
Exactly. But then the lyrics radically zoom forward in time to Calvary.
That connection between Nehemiah and Christ is stunning. Because in Nehemiah chapter 6, verse 3, Nehemiah tells his enemies who are trying to distract him, "I am doing a great work so that I cannot come down."
Right.
And then, centuries later, Jesus is hanging on the cross. And in Matthew chapter 27, verse 40, the crowds taunt him with the exact inverse jeer.
The exact inverse.
They scream at him, "Come down from the cross."
The parallels are profound. I mean, the enemies of Nehemiah challenged his motives, claiming he just wanted to be a king.
Right, with the open letter.
And they tried to get him to come down to the plain of Ono to halt the physical salvation of Jerusalem.
Yeah.
But the enemies of Christ challenged his actual kingship, mocking his identity, and demanded he come down from the cross, which would have halted the spiritual salvation of the entire world.
Both were tempted to abandon the work to save themselves.
Exactly.
But Christ wouldn't come down until the ransom was paid in full. He stayed until the true foundation stone, which Isaiah chapter 28, verse 16 references, was permanently laid.
which completely recontextualizes the chorus.
It totally does. When we hear, I am doing a great work, it is no longer just about the masonry of a physical wall. It points directly to the spiritual redemption finished by Christ,
He was the one doing the ultimate great work.
which fundamentally changes the emotional weight of everything that follows.
Well, yeah, because the physical wall Nehemiah built was temporary, but the spiritual foundation Christ laid is eternal.
Yes. And the lyrics reflect that shift immediately, because the final chorus pivots from the collective we to focusing entirely on the Savior.
How does it go?
It says, he was doing a great work, he would not come down, he carried our sorrow, he wore the thorn crown.
Oh, that's beautiful.
But then as the song closes, it brings that immense theological reality right back down to the listener's daily life. The pronouns shift one last time to I.
This raises an important question for everyone listening, I think.
Definitely.
We've examined ancient Jerusalem and we've examined Calvary, but what is the modern equivalent of the wall? What does it mean for you today to refuse to come down?
Because thankfully, we aren't literally stacking bricks while dodging ancient Persian spear throwers.
Right, though some days it feels like it.
Honestly, yeah.
But today, your wall represents two vital areas of your life.
Okay, what are they?
Internally, it represents your guardrails. So these are your daily spiritual habits, your mental health boundaries, and the limits you set to protect your mind from toxicity and cynicism.
Okay, I love that. And externally?
Externally, your wall is your kingdom-building work. So that might look like raising a healthy family, serving your local community, or simply being a person of integrity in a really difficult workplace.
So what does this all mean? It means the modern plane of Ono, that trap where the enemy tries to get you to compromise and come down, is everywhere.
It really is.
It is the outrage culture we navigate daily. It's getting sucked into toxic social media debates, cynical bickering, gossip, and, the temptation to lower your moral standards just because it is culturally popular.
Right. Refusing to come down means you actively choose not to waste your peace engaging with petty drama or mockery.
Yeah.
You recognize the value of your work, and you just refuse to step off your high moral ground just to win a cheap argument in the comments section.
The song's outro gets very quiet and deeply personal. It says, I have a great work, I have my own wall. By the grace of God, I will not come down or fall. And I just want to speak directly to you, the listener, for a moment. Sometimes keeping up your daily habits, praying, reading, choosing kindness, holding your tongue when you desperately want to snap back, it just feels exhausting.
It really does.
Most of the time, it feels completely unseen. But that everyday perseverance is a great work.
Absolutely.
Your peace of mind, the atmosphere of your home, and your personal integrity are simply too valuable to trade for worldly distractions.
That is the ultimate takeaway here. Whether you are laying a foundation and managing the complex emotions of grief and joy like Zerubbabel, or holding a sword in one hand and a trowel in the other like Nehemiah, or just trying to protect your family's peace in a really loud world, you are doing a great work.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over on your own this week.
Okay.
We spent a lot of time talking about walls as defense mechanisms, right?
Yeah.
Keeping out the schemes, the smears, the negativity, the chaos. But think about the physical structure of a wall. A wall doesn't just keep dangerous things out. By keeping the chaos at bay, a wall creates a quiet, safe space for things to grow inside.
Oh, that is a beautiful image. The wall creates a garden.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
if you refuse to come down this week, if you refuse to engage with the noise and the outrage, what beautiful things might finally have the quiet space to grow inside the walls of your own life?
That is a profound question to carry with us.
I guess you too. Take some time to evaluate your own wall this week. Remember the title of the lesson and remember Nehemiah's bold claim, I'm doing great work. Keep a trowel in your hand, don't let the noise pull you down, and we will see you next time on The Deep Dive.